You know that feeling, right? You wake up and there's a scratch on your arm you just can't explain. Or you hear that weird noise in the middle of the night and there's just no source. It's so easy to let your imagination run wild. But before you do that, what you really need is a solid, step-by-step plan. And that is exactly what we're going to lay out in this explainer. And if this is happening to you, first thing to know is you are definitely not alone. I mean, just look at this quote from someone on Reddit. It perfectly captures how frustrating this can be. They did the logical thing. They saw a doctor, they ruled out the easy stuff, and now they're stuck. That's the exact point where we're going to jump in and start our own investigation. So here's our game plan. We're going to break this down into 5 parts. First, we'll get a handle on the problem itself. Then we'll put on our detective hats and go through a rational checklist to rule out all the normal stuff. After that, we'll dive into the possibility that it's a trick of the mind. Then and only then will we explore the supernatural. And we'll finish up with a concrete action plan so you know exactly what your next steps can be. You know, it's funny how something that starts as just a small annoyance, a weird little scratch, a faint tapping sound, can really start to get under your skin. When you can't find a logical reason for it, that little curiosity can bubble up into real anxiety, even fear, and it starts to chip away at that feeling of being safe and secure in your own home. But here's the key, the absolute most important thing to remember. The goal is to fight that urge to panic. The best way to get back in the driver's seat is to stop guessing and start investigating. A good, structured plan turns a terrifying mystery into a problem you can actually solve, no matter what the final answer turns out to be. Okay, this brings us to what I like to call the diagnostic funnel. This is the most critical part of the whole process. We have to start at the widest part of the funnel, which means we systematically check off every single boring, mundane, logical explanation we can think of. Before we even think about the extraordinary, we have to be really, really good detectives. All right, so here's your assignment for the next 48 hours. I want you to be meticulous, document everything. Whip out your phone, take pictures of any scratches, record any weird sounds, note the time, the place, all of it. Then get forensic with your bedroom. Is there a sharp zipper on a pillow, a rogue bed spring? Does your cat or dog sleep with you? Next, think about your own mental state. Been super stressed lately, having nightmares? Sometimes we can scratch ourselves without even knowing it. After that, broaden your search to the whole house. Could it be mice in the walls, air in the pipes? And finally, let's check for the really rare stuff, like a slow carbon monoxide leak, which can cause hallucinations, or high EMF fields from power lines. We have to rule it all out. Okay, so what happens if you do all of that and you come up with nothing? Absolutely zero. Well, the next layer of our funnel isn't ghosts, it's psychology. We have to seriously consider the possibility that the source of all this isn't in your house, but inside your own head. This table really lays out our 3 main possibilities. We just spent a bunch of time on the physical category, drafts, pests, real-world stuff, and I know your brain probably wants to jump right over to that last column, the supernatural, but let's pause. Let's hang out in this middle column for a bit, the psychological, because frankly, this is where some of the most fascinating and overlooked theories live. And that brings us to this wild concept called recurrent spontaneous psychokinesis, or RSPK for short. It's a mouthful, I know, but the theory is basically this. What if the person causing all the ruckus is you? The idea is that someone under extreme stress can unconsciously project all that bottled up energy outwards, and that energy actually causes physical things to happen. Objects moving, noises, even scratches. It's not an outside spirit, it's your own energy. And really, never underestimate the power of your own subconscious. The legendary psychologist Carl Jung pointed out that our minds can create incredibly complex things literally from nothing. I mean, the entire story of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde apparently just popped into the author's head during a dream. So the question RSPK asks is a pretty big one. If our minds can build entire worlds when we're asleep, is it really so crazy to think they can make a few bumps in the night when we're awake? So, only after you have exhaustively checked every physical cause and you've honestly considered the psychological possibilities, only then do we arrive at our final category. This is when we can finally peek behind the curtain into the realm of the supernatural. But we're still going to approach it with that same methodical detective's mindset. The word that usually comes up first is poltergeist. It's German for noisy spirit, which is, pretty accurate. Now, according to paranormal lore, here's the key difference. A ghost is typically said to haunt a place, like a house. A poltergeist, on the other hand, is thought to attach itself to a specific person, and its main thing is causing physical, disruptive activity. And the reported signs of a poltergeist, well, they read like a checklist for exactly what we're talking about. You've got unexplained noises like knocking and scratching, objects moving on their own, electronics going haywire, and then there's the really personal stuff, physical attacks like scratches and pinches. If you're nodding along to several of these, then you're squarely in what paranormal investigators would call classic poltergeist territory. And it's so important to remember that this isn't just a Western idea. Almost every culture has its own framework for these kinds of events. In Turkish folklore, for instance, there's something called Jinn çarpması, which basically means Jinn strike. It's used to explain a sudden onset of physical and psychological problems that are blamed on a run-in with a jinn. It's a powerful reminder that people have been trying to understand these exact same experiences all over the world for centuries. Okay, we have covered a lot of ground. We've gone from the purely physical to the deeply psychological, and finally into the supernatural. You've weighed all the theories, but that all leads to the single most important question. What do you actually do about it? I want you to think of this as a menu of options. There's no single right answer here. It all depends on your investigation and what you believe. If you suspect the source is psychological, maybe stemming from stress, then the path forward could be counseling or stress management. If you're truly convinced it's supernatural, your options range from confronting it or seeking a spiritual cleansing to removing an object you think might be the cause or even just trying to ignore it. And hey, if you were still completely unsure, then do exactly what that Reddit user wanted to do. Set up a camera. Gathering more evidence is never a bad idea. So, in the end, this whole investigation leads us to this one huge, fascinating question. Are these strange disturbances coming from something outside of us, an entity that's found its way into our space? Or are they a physical projection of the vast, powerful, and sometimes chaotic world that exists deep inside our own subconscious? The answer to that? Well, that might be the biggest mystery of all.